Well, hi everybody, I'm Clements Burrows from JCB and I'm going to be presenting the Berninneit Cultural and Community Centre on Phillip Island, which is on Bunurong country. I pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. The site for the project is in Cowes on Phillip Island at the northern end of the island, and the actual project site itself is on Thompson Avenue, the main civic street running up and down in Cowes. It's always been a civic and a community facility. There were council offices there before council was amalgamated in the early 2000s, but these buildings are much neglected, the landscape's in disrepair, and the community facilities have been provided, as you can see, not really up to standard. The project's been bubbling along for about 20 years, and in 2015 there was a more concerted effort to make it real with an activity centre plan, concept scheme by Terrawire, a lot of community consultation, then a secondary concept scheme by Ian Perkins Architects. So it's had a lot of false starts. We came on board in 2020 and then COVID hit, so we had to do an enormous amount of stakeholder engagement remotely. We were engaging not only with council but also external stakeholders, including artists groups, theatre groups, writers groups, Historical Society, Bunurong Land Council. And the reason why we did so much engagement is a really highly programmed building, a 260-seat theatre, the Gippsland West Library, community rooms, the Historical Society, an art gallery, customer service, etc., etc. So a really hard-working building providing enormous community benefit for the people of Phillip Island. So what was the design response? Firstly, recognising the existing condition, which meant that the site addressed not only Thompson Avenue but also a bus interchange and car park on the east. We very carefully placed the footprint of our building on the site to preserve some really beautiful mature native trees. And then, backwards. And then once we'd placed the building in this way, it allowed us a very generous civic frontage onto Thompson Avenue and a more courtyard garden type approach from the bus interchange. These diverse programs on site needed to be threaded together, and we created the Grand Hall as the civic spine through the building. It's almost like an internal street, allowing all these programs to connect with each other. And then we really allowed the volumetric forms of these programs to help dictate the roof line. We had a beautiful, gentle, undulating topography emerge for the built form, which really does start to speak to the island. And so hopefully we've resulted in a new civic facility that is intrinsically grounded in place. So we have a site plan. We can see the bus interchange and car park on the east, Thompson Avenue on the west, the two primary arrival points, the civic courtyard, the garden courtyard. And then zooming in on the ground floor, we can see the Grand Hall, the civic spine that connects the library and the Historical Museum in the north through the multiple purpose community rooms, toilets, back of house, box office, gallery and theatre on the right. There is a development site immediately to the north, so the site is really about addressing its east and west frontages. Upstairs were council offices and higher level theatre seating, as well as a services pit. The section really shows how diverse these programs were and how it helped start informing the form and the design response of the building. From the outset, sustainability was key, and council was really interested in providing an exemplar facility, and to that end it is on its way to passive house certification, but there's a hell of a lot more happening in this building as well. Principally a strong mass timber presence, which was all regionally sourced, zero carbon bricks, solar shading, obviously the thermal performance of the passive house envelope, 70 kilowatts of photovoltaics and rainwater collection and reuse. Had to do a lot of heavy modelling to really validate the passive house approach, and really it results in, the predictions result in 70% less energy use and carbon emissions for the building compared to a deemed to satisfy building. So council were a fantastic client, really willing participant in this journey, and really wanted to sort of show a way forward to the community. A lot of really complex detailing, airtight envelopes, heavy insulation, highly insulated slabs, and also really considering thermal bridging detailing. So very deep technical resolution, and when the building's wrapped up, it looked a little bit like an esky before the brickwork went on, and some really amazing insulated formwork to the slab. I mentioned we try to source local materials, and in principle our mass timber columns and beams came from ash in Gippsland, our bricks came from Wollert, and the CLT panels from Albury-Wodonga, so trying to keep material supply as local and regional as possible before we start to go into national or international. Some construction shots, the slab going down, the first CLT panels, the mass timber columns, which are some of them 12 metres high, and the steel framing. But really, essentially, we wanted this building to be grounded in place. And so how could we explore the geology, the ecology of the island to come up with a building that felt appropriate to this place and of this place for the people, for all of the people of the island. And coincidentally, the plan form of the building and the shape of the island sort of bore a loose resemblance with each other, and that was probably a happy accident, but the sweeping bays and coves are sort of reflected in the footprint of the building. And when we sort of looked at the colours and the materials and the undulations of the topography and the jetties and the dunes and the remnant, we found a really rich tapestry of materials and forms here that we could draw on to really help inform the building. And one example of this is the articulated brickwork on the external facade, which is really reminiscent of the erosion of the cliffs at the pinnacles on the southwestern edge of the island. And so on to the built form itself, and here's the building. You can see Thompson Avenue running north, and from our area view, the two different arrival courtyards, the civic space versus the garden entry. The building as 2 minutes. Yep, the building as seen from the southwest, and then nestling in under these retained trees, and also viewed from Thompson Avenue with the library entry and theatre spaces beckoning back to us. The garden courtyard entry, and then transitioning inside. And it's important for us that this building was consistent throughout, internally and externally. This beautiful soft timber quality to the grand hall through double height spaces, connecting upper levels with low levels. So we didn't really need to do too much because the materials were doing all the beautiful work for us. And there's a softness and a feeling of warmth in the space that's really quite alluring. This is a children's portion of the library. A staircase to go upstairs, bringing the brickwork inside as well, and then onto our communal spaces, which were highly flexible and adaptable, and we needed to curate a whole range of different events and activities within them. But even these community spaces took their cues from chicory kilns on the island, which was the primary agricultural export from the island in the 1800s. The interiors palette, as I said, is warm, soft and honest, and we're trying to keep these very gentle colour themes running all the way through, even through into the bathrooms themselves. But the theatre itself is one of the main heroes of the project, a new, purpose-built regional theatre that has been used by council to attract a fantastic array of new performers, and back out into the grand hall as a space to orientate and collect us. But it is about activation, and it's about the community, and it's wonderful seeing the community vibrantly filling these spaces. The acoustics in this hall are amazing. It's very soft, it's not resonant. And as I said, Council's been curating an amazing program of national and even international artists to come here. But first and foremost, it is about the local community, and this building is rich and alive with the energy that the local community is putting into it, including local theatre groups, artist societies, parades, etc., etc. So hopefully we've resulted in a building that really lives up to its name in terms of coming together and gathering together, and this is a building that we already, through feedback receiving, has become much loved and much adopted by the people of the island. That's that.
Great.
Thank you.